Okay. After months and months and months of playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night and dabbling in a little bit of Kingdom Hearts and playing a little bit of Resident Evil 4 here and there, you might ask me, well, what's your tier list on the Castlevania franchise? You know, what game is first, second, and third? Well, Castlevania Symphony of the Night takes a clear first, while Lament of Innocence takes a clear third. Well, this leaves me with this question: which takes second place? What game do I think sits in that middle zone with Castlevania? To that, I will state this: it is Super Castlevania for the SNES. And that's the game I will be reviewing today. You guys straddle down, get buckled up, get yourself some popcorn, and we will move into the spice review. To kick off this review, I'm going to go on ahead and start covering a little bit of base information on the game, so you guys can get your little nipples hard for this little review here. Of course, like every Castlevania game, it was developed by Konami in 1991 and was released on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The soundtrack features brand new pieces and some arrangement songs which I cannot seem to put my finger on. This game was released 6 years before Symphony of the Night and 2 years before Rondo of Blood, which I'll compare to in a while from now on. Super Castlevania IV is a reimagining of Castlevania 1. The director of the game is Masahiro Ueno, who directed games like Castlevania Lords of Shadows and Metal Gear. The producer of the game, on the other hand, is Kazumi Katayue, which I can find little to no information on whatsoever. The composer for the music was Taro Kudo, which did all sorts of good songs, and I cannot find any of the music he did and composed for other games and such. But for the games in Super Castlevania IV, I can only remember just about 2 songs. Between its predecessors, I think Simon's Quest is a bit more renowned, considering the fuck ton of games Simon has been in. Generally speaking, this is one of the more go-to Castlevania games, while Symphony of the Night is another. With this being said, a lot of people start dropping Super Castlevania IV due to the difficulty. Like every Joestar, Belmont. Like every Belmont, you have to take on Vlad Dracula Tepish. In this version of Castlevania, your mission is to travel to Dracula's castle. Wait, doesn't Dracula come every 100 years? So how fucking old are you, Simon? But there really isn't a plot for this game that's remotely interesting. The only thing that comes out of it is the OST and the gameplay, which pretty much make up for it. I mean, Simon's Quest had you collect mutilated Dracula body parts so that you can beat him again, so you can remove your curse, thus resulting in saving the day, and removing your curse, but ultimately dying. I mean, look at Richter in Rondo of Blood. Richter had to save his girlfriend, Maria, and a couple of other girls to defeat Dracula, and win over my heart and become my favorite Belmont. Whereas this, with you pretty much beat the shit out of Dracula because Dad took his Xbox away. Like, come on, Simon! You're gonna let Richter show you up? You're gonna let him be better than you? I mean, then again, let's be honest, I never really liked Simon in the first place. Anyway, all that aside, I feel that the game was spectacularly done, considering that it's pretty tough. The graphics really aren't anything to snare at. I mean, look at Simon, liking the new HQ look on you, buddy. Still don't like you though. But I mean, it only makes sense because this is around the time where games are starting to amp up in quality. I mean, considering that this was released 3 years just before the PS1 release. Look at Rondo and then look at Super Castlevania IV. There's not much of a graphical difference. I mean, there is a little more smoother graphics and smoother animation with certain things, but there really isn't much of a graphical difference. Like I said previously, the game doesn't really throw anything in your face because it's a retelling of the first Castlevania game. This also means that there's an enhanced version of the game also, and that will also start me breeding into the gameplay portion of this video. You start off the game not in Dracula's castle, but on the outskirts of it, giving you a little something to work for. The game has a level system consisting of 11 stages right before you fight Dracula himself. The game isn't exactly the hardest, but it gives you a run for your money. We see a bunch of classic enemies, including a few newcomers, which I could really care less to remember. Instead of being able to whip in one direction, you can whip in several different directions, making it extremely easy to smack some baddies. Of course, you have some sub-weapons at your disposal too, like every other Castlevania game that you've played beforehand. One thing you can do in the game that I actually think was really helpful is that you can dangle your whip. This helps out with enemies who fly or just asshole enemies like bats and the little dragon skeleton thing that sticks out of the wall. It helps out a lot because when you do that and you whip it in a circle, it can hit the fireballs and hit the opponent at the same time, making it really easy for you to do. That aside, let's get back to the sub-weapons. In Super Castlevania IV, you have the axe, knife, holy water, holy cross, and that's just about it. Throughout my playthrough, the only useful sub-weapons in the game are the knife and the holy cross. The reason why is because the knife goes in one simple direction, making it really easy to spam to hard to reach enemies. Same goes for the holy cross, but it has a higher damage output. The axe either misses and takes a few seconds too long for me to spam, which is the only way I can make it past ass-eating enemies and ass-eating areas. With the holy water, you have to be too close for comfort in order to do 100% damage output. That being said, you have to get super close, throw the holy water, then you have to rinse repeat. With some some enemies, they don't really die when you throw one holy water, like Axe Knights. You throw one, does damage, you have to throw another one, and that can result in you taking unnecessary damage. But the only ones you should really go for are the knife and the holy cross, since those ones are really easy to spam, and the holy cross does 100% damage output. The only 100% surefire way to deal with asshole enemies, like Axe Knights, is to take, crouch, get nice and close, and spank them knees until they turn into a big old ball of fire. You have a control jump, which means absolutely fucking nothing, and I will explain this very aggressively. The entire game is based on you timing your jumps perfectly, and oh boy, you better not fucking hope you get hit by a fucking enemy on a small platform, because oh boy, if you do, you'll get knocked back an unholy distance. And I don't mean by maybe a few inches, no, but by a few fucking feet. Anyway, back to some positive feedback, if there's any at all. Even though your ass gets handed to you most times, you usually just wind up getting used to it, and by then again, you get used to the fact that you have a controlled jump, and that you'll get livid in the fact that, you know, you got hit by an enemy on a small platform, and you fall to your death. So, yeah, that's probably going to be your main source of game overs and, you know, having to waste continues anyway. Speaking of continues, you do have unlimited continues, and that kind of makes up for it. And yes, I use save states, fuck you. But that is one thing I will say I like about the game, is that it takes me back to my old platforming days, which was pretty damn fun. I didn't suck so much back then as a kid, but playing this gave me some good old memories. But it gives me all the fuel to play Mega Man 9 and 7 over again, and I won't be making a review on those, by the way. Good times, I will say. Now I'm going to start talking about the improvements from Symphony of the Night, and talking about this one too. In Symphony of the Night, you can run across sub-weapons more often than you can in this one. In Super Castlevania IV, you can whip in various directions. Like I said earlier, it makes up for hitting a lot of baddies, but in Rondo of Blood, you can only whip in one direction. You aren't really restricted to bad platforming, and jumping doesn't have to be pixel perfect. That's all I could really compare about, because that's all I could think about on the spot. Now I'll start talking about some more things you can do in the game. You can use the Vampire Killer to grapple on these here hook things that'll help you get to hard to reach platforms, but the downside is to it, in a particular level, you have to make it just right at the edge of the jump and whip at the exact same time, swing and let go at the right time. But you hardly come across these little swing sessions anyhow, but it kinda does slow down your pacing if you're speedrunning, so be careful. Another thing I want to talk about is how inconsistent Simon is. When you jump, he's either floaty like a feather, or the next moment, he can drop like my dick is tied to an anvil. Like I said earlier, the jumps are key to platforming in this game, and if you don't jump at the right time and make it to pixel perfect territory, then you're fucked. At the same time, the game can feel extremely easy and vary in difficulty. I mean, I died a few times in the first stage, and that's kind of considering the fact that this is my first time playing this game. And man, was Medusa easy to kill. Actually, wait a minute, all of the bosses are easy. All you have to do is just spam the Vampire Killer or spam sub-weapons if you have them. One of the bosses did give me a hard time though, and I won't tell you because I don't have any clips of it. But I will say this, swords and dancing. When you get to Dracula's castle, the difficulty ramps up like my dick when I see a tomboy or a reverse trap. Enemies come left and right and you can hardly defend yourself, and oh yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, you will have a metric fuck ton of hearts, but no sub-weapons. I think with all that being said, I think I'll go on ahead and top this off with the final boss, and which is Dracula himself. The boss is incredibly difficult, and I use the cheat method. Ha ha ha! Yeah, I use cheats. What are you gonna do about it? Dislike the video? Please don't. I really need the likes, and I really need the likes. Anyway, but in reality, it's pretty hard beating him regardless if you use the cheat or not. He'll hand your ass to you on a silver platter if you don't memorize his patterns, then you're fucked, buddy. One of his attacks drops chicken, so you don't really know if he's trying to kill you or end your bloodline or help you out in the end of the day. But it does help out in the long run. But please, spam those crosses if you have them, because you can hit him with them a bunch of times. That is highly suggested. Your damage output with those crosses will skyrocket if you throw like 4 of those things at once. Once you're close to beating him, Simon's theme will play. After you waylay to Dracula, you'll be happy to finally quit the game, because I definitely was happy to exit the game out and not be able to play it again. But this is one part of the script I kinda didn't want to do, but I didn't want to put it in here in the video, but I argued against my own transgressions, so I went on ahead and put it in here. So let's just go on ahead and talk about this. Do I recommend the game? Do I recommend the game? Yes and no. The game isn't bad, but it isn't good. It's a good way for you to get in a Rondo of Blood or even Symphony of the Night if you want to. I mean, I played Symphony first because that was the one game I was interested and invested in the time. right after I beat Symphony, I started playing Super Castlevania IV, and this kind of resulted in me not enjoying it very much and starting off with a very, very stale opinion of the game. It's not particularly hard to get into, but it's a really good gateway game to get into the two most best games in the Castlevania franchise out there. If you're wanting to get into the Castlevania series, then I very well recommend this game for you to play. Try to get as far as you can if your mental state will take you there, and drop it if you want to move over to Rondo or Blood or Symphony of the Night. I mean, like I said, I do recommend it, but then again, I don't. Don't try to beat the game your first playthrough, you know, play it at your own pace, do it that way, but don't try to like emotionally invest in yourself in this game like I did, because that kind of resulted in me having a really stale opinion. So I suggest play Super Castlevania IV, then play Rondo of Blood or Symphony of the Night. I mean, you could play Rondo of Blood, then move over to Super Castlevania IV, or play Symphony, then play Rondo of Blood, then Super Castlevania IV. It's your choice. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you to play this game. Like, you know, I mean, let's be honest anyway. You're probably not gonna play the game anyway. Because I'm recommending it. I've only got like 18 subs. You're probably not gonna play it anyway, man. Anyway, this is Velvet Groove, and I am signing out.